All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever wondered how a simple idea, something that just pops into your head, can actually become a company? We're talking about a legal person that can outlive its founder. Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on that incredible transformation.
I mean, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, right? How does something you can't even touch, like a business plan, suddenly get the power to own buildings, sign contracts, and even show up in court? That's the big question we're going to tackle.
Okay, so first things first, we're going to trace this journey right from that initial aha moment, that creative spark, all the way to the point where the law goes, yep, that's a real thing now, a whole new entity completely separate from the person who thought it up.
You know, think about any big company out there. Every single one started as just an idea. But here's the thing, an idea on its own can't actually do anything. It can't hire people, it can't borrow money. To really operate and grow, that spark needs a body, a legal structure to exist in.
So, how do we actually build this legal person? This is where we get into the nuts and bolts. The incorporation machine. It's not magic, not at all. It's a very specific, very real legal process.
And really, this whole system boils down to just two main players. First, you've got the rulebook, the Corporations Act. Think of it as the ultimate instruction manual. And then you have the regulator, ASIC. They're like the official gatekeeper, making sure everyone's playing by the rules in that book.
And the path itself is surprisingly straightforward. It's basically a four-step dance. First, you get your documents ready. This is like the company's DNA. Then, you lodge them with ASIC, the gatekeeper. They give it the once-over, and if everything checks out, they issue what's basically a birth certificate. And boom! The second that certificate is issued, the company is officially born. It legally exists.
All right, the company is born. Now what? This is where things get really interesting, because this is the moment everything changes. The paperwork is filed, the certificate is in hand, and suddenly there's a new entity walking around in the eyes of the law. And that brings us to the absolute core concept here, the separate legal entity. This is the big deal. It means the company isn't just you with a fancy name. No, it's its own person now. It can stand on its own 2 feet, legally speaking.
And you know, this whole idea isn't new. It goes way back to this super important case where a guy named Solomon sold his business to a company that he himself owned. And the court said, yep, that company is a totally separate person. And that one decision, it changed everything. It basically created a safety net for entrepreneurs, protecting their personal stuff if the business goes south. It's a game changer we kind of take for granted today.
This really breaks it down perfectly. Just look at the debts. Your personal debts, they're on you. But the company's debts, well, they belong to the company. Same deal with assets and lawsuits. The company owns its own gear, and it can sue someone or be sued, all under its own name. This wall between you and the business is what lawyers call the corporate veil.
Okay, but creating a whole new legal person isn't a free lunch. As soon as you bring this thing into the world, you've got a job to do. You have a responsibility to look after it. And that leads us straight to the role of a director.
You know the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility? Well, it's never been more true. Creating a company gives you, as a director, a ton of power to act for it. But the law steps in and says, hold on a second, with that power come duties. These aren't suggestions, they're serious legal obligations.
And these duties aren't just, nice ideas. They're the real deal. They're written down in black and white in the Corporations Act. They're built up from hundreds of years of court cases, what we call general law. And yeah, they're also just about basic professional ethics.
Okay, so let's pull all this together. We've seen how a company is born and how that birth immediately creates new responsibilities. So what are the absolute must-know takeaways from all this?
All right, takeaway number 1. It's all about the rules of the game. This whole process we've been talking about, it's not the Wild West. It's all governed by one single master document.
And that rulebook is the Corporations Act. Simple as that. It's the Bible for how companies are created, how they live, and how they're managed. If you want to play the game, you got to know the rules.
Okay, takeaway number 2. This is about what happens the split second that company comes into existence. There are 2 huge things that happen at the exact same time.
And it's this double-edged sword. On one side, you create this amazing new entity with its own legal life, a shield that protects you personally. But on the other side, you instantly take on a whole new set of serious legal and ethical duties as its director. The freedom and the responsibility, they're totally inseparable.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. If a company really is its own legal person,
separate from everyone else, who's it truly accountable to? Is it the shareholders who own it, the employees who work there, or maybe society as a whole? That's the question that business leaders and lawmakers are still wrestling with every single day. Thanks for joining me.